So 50 years, 3 presidents. We'll talk a little bit about culture as well. You become the head of the company, but tell me what happened in 1978. Things almost didn't pan out in 1978, did they?
Well, no, they almost didn't, but fortunately I can rely on Mr. Harkin's wisdom. In 1978, the company went through a bit of a rough patch. We had been approached by our surety to take over 7 projects for another company who was going under. So we agreed to do so, and it was a mistake. We didn't have the manpower. We didn't know the manpower that we were bringing one from the other company. And we finished all of the projects, every last one of them, but it was a pretty significant financial hit to us. And so once we finished the last project, our surety dropped us. Like, okay. So at that time, I was working in estimating and pre-construction and business development. And Mr. Harkin said that until we could resolve our surety issues, but also until we could get our financial house in order, we were not to pursue any more work. We were going to get everything cleaned up, get our financial house in order, and until that time, we weren't to pursue any more work. Well, of course, that was what I did. And so I even tried to convince him to bid a project in Columbia, and Mr. Harkins listened to my entire presentation, asked me a couple of pointed questions, and when I was all complete, he sat there, and then he asked me, he said, "Was I not clear that we weren't bidding anything?" So I was pretty frustrated because I didn't have anything to do, and so I wrote my letter of resignation, and I took handwritten letter of resignation, and I took it in to Mr. Harkins. And you had to know Mr. Harkins, but he was just one of these people who was never in a hurry to say something. He would listen and listen and listen. And so he reads my letter, and he sits there, and he sits there. And finally, he looks up at me, and he says, "No." And which I thought was kind of a strange response. I thought that was my decision, you know. And, but he convinced me that the issues that we were facing were short term, and that I had great opportunities long term with the company. And so he refused to accept my resignation, and it was wonderful for me that he did.
Absolutely.